asked me if I knew Charlie D'Amelio or Addison Rae. Obviously but what's the hot gossip? What's the 411? Okay, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Maddie if you've never been here before. So my time teaching English through the TAPIF program has officially come to an end. I just kind of wanted to run through what I thought of the program overall. I did already make a video about why and how I had a positive experience my first year, and I've also made a video about my TAPIF schedule. But today I want to talk a little bit more about some of the negatives that I encountered and kind of some more positives, but basically I just wanted to like wrap up my whole experience in this video because I know actually right now some of the TAPIF decisions are coming out. They're telling people they've gotten into the program. So I think it's good just to kind of know what to expect. Obviously, this is just my experience. There are a ton of other videos on YouTube about other people's experiences, why they liked it or didn't like it. But I just want to give the same disclaimer that I gave when I made my original video about like how and why I had a positive experience, which is that obviously, like I just said, this is my experience, and being like a cis white person, I think that it's very important to consider that when you're listening to my opinion, because there's a lot of factors that did not affect my experience. So I definitely think that it's important to consider other people's perspectives on this, especially people of color. So without further ado, let's get into some of the talking points. So first I want to talk about just like a few of the negatives. So like I said, I've already made a video about why I had a positive experience, and I think that you could basically carry over those same principles into my second year. Like I still had an incredibly positive experience doing this program, but I did of course encounter some of the negatives. So I will talk about those really quickly. Number one is the pay. Obviously it is the pay, but there's definitely a more like nuanced conversation I think that needs to come about with this. So, and there's actually two other creators who share a channel called the Francofile. I've actually mentioned their videos many times on my channel. They already made a video that like really gets into the pay, because I think that there's a lot of, I don't know, people get really pissed off about the pay. But so you get about 800 euros a month, but you're only working about 12 hours a week. Of course, that doesn't include planning. That doesn't include if you have to commute and you have to go and sit at the school, but like the actual hours that you teach, you do 12 hours a week. So that could be divided in different ways. But so for me, that was 12 different classes. And yes, sometimes that did represent like quite a bit of outside work, but overall, like, I mean, I never had to grade anything, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But basically, I know that there are a lot of complaints about the pay, and it really is not a lot of money. Like if you didn't have savings or you didn't have somewhere to live, I think that it would be really hard for you to swing it on that amount of money. In fact, in the TAPIF kind of, what's it called, handbook, they actually say to you, if you're gonna be placed in Paris, which I'm just like literally just outside of Paris, they actually say like it's probably not gonna be enough money for you to live. So that's definitely a negative, but I don't know, it's hard because, and this is actually one of the other negatives that it's kind of indirect, but one of the other negatives is that there are these Facebook groups that you can be in, like the TAPIF Facebook group for your year or your region. And there's just a lot of complaining in those groups. I think it's a very like toxic environment. People give a lot of opinions, and there's a lot of weird controlling behaviors in those Facebook groups. There was a lot of drama this year, so definitely some of the like Facebook groups can be kind of a negative of it. But just getting back to the money thing, yes, I do think that maybe it would be nice to get paid a little bit more, but at the same time, you know what the pay is coming into this program. So if you can't really complain about it once you come here because you agreed to accept that amount. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that can definitely be a negative, but you know, you kind of have to know for yourself, like if you can budget, like how you're gonna make it work. Maybe you can find like a host family, you know, so the money can definitely be a little bit tricky. So the second thing, and this is definitely something that might be like a little tough to speak on, I don't know, but it can definitely be a very isolating experience. I think especially if you live in like a smaller town where there's only one assistant. So like there's really no one else. When I was an au pair, it was super easy to make friends because I was surrounded by other au pairs. So you're kind of already in this community. But whenever you're doing TAPIF, like you might be I was the only assistant at both of my schools. So it's not like I couldn't really make friends through my school, and you can do these like kind of meetups, but it's hard to really connect with people. But like I said, it can definitely be pretty isolating, and I know that it has been super hard on people mentally. I don't really want to like speak too much on it because I feel like it's not really I don't know, there's been a lot of issues with mental health in the TAPIF kind of community in France the past 2 years. And I'm sure there's like a lot of other people that can speak on that more clearly than me, because that's not my experience. So I don't want to like take away from that, if that makes sense. And I think that sometimes it's hard to really find support here. So that's definitely something to think about. If you're thinking about coming here, I would definitely like take a step back and really consider, like, are you okay with being alone? Are you okay with like not really having friends when you first come here? I don't know, it's like, it's definitely something to like really consider, and just like know nothing is more important than your health. So if you feel like you need to back out, just do it. Like if you come here and it sucks and it's not working out and you feel, and I totally get it. I will continue to do things even if I don't want to, because like I feel bad, but like don't do that, you know, like the school will be fine without you. Just like take care of yourself and don't be afraid to back out. You totally can. There's nothing more important than your health. Especially these past couple years, I probably came at like the worst, weirdest time to become an assistant, because I came in the fall of 2019. It's now 2021, so basically I only had like maybe like 6 months of normalcy before obviously COVID started, lockdown, all that stuff. So definitely just like consider what's going on right now, the situation. Realize it might not be normal, you might be more isolated, and like really just like take care of yourself. Okay, this last part about like the negatives, and I really hope I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, move some of my trash. Okay, I'm gonna make this really quick. This is what happens when you don't plan out your videos well. But just so anyone knows who are coming into the program, there's not a lot of support for you, and even outside, like friendships is what I mean, is like administrative support. So like things like, for me, trying to renew my visa here in France was just like a nightmare. I never got a paper that I needed. Thankfully everything worked out. I am here legally, do not fret, but it's just like, it's really hard to get help if you need it, because like administrative help, questions about like questions about like paperwork and things like that can be really hard, because there's one contact, there's like one person in charge of you from the States for like I don't know, over 1,000 assistants here in France. So what you need to do is you need to like, first of all, you need to like find someone at your school who can help you, because you need to have like a more localized contact. So for me, that was my prof referent, who like my reference teacher, who is super awesome, super nice. Just wanted to quickly jump on and say that is one of the negatives, is that it is sometimes hard to navigate some of the more administrative tasks, like, and also like little things like setting up your phone, opening a bank account. These are things that can be really hard, and these are things that you're kind of facing by yourself because you really don't have a ton of support. So I hope that made sense, and cut back to the video. Obviously there can be some negatives with like, sometimes the kids can be hard, like they're not every single one of them is super motivated to learn English, which I always say like that's totally fine if you don't care, like, because I never want to be the person that comes in and is like, you have to learn English. That just feels very like wrong. I just always say like, it's just important to learn. I think learning any other language, like learning a second, or for a lot of them a third language, is really cool and really useful. So I definitely try to put more emphasis on language learning versus like learning English, if that makes sense. So obviously some of them can be little shits, and toward the end there were definitely some days, I feel like this kind of goes back to like talking about mental health and stuff, but I feel like it is a job that if you're not feeling well that day, or if you are just like feeling down and then you go to a class and the kids are being like little shits to you, and you've like prepared this game and they like don't care or being rude to you, that can be really hard. I will say, don't take things personally. I mean, they're literally, I mean, for me, they're literally children. It might be harder if you are in high school years, but for me, they're literally kids. You know, it's not that serious, but it can definitely be hard sometimes. But the last kind of negative before I get to the positives is that for me, this was obviously just my experience, but sometimes for me, it was hard to really feel like a part of the school, if that makes sense. Like I just kind of always felt like an outsider. Like I would like sit in the teacher's lounge on like some of my breaks and like not a single person would come talk to me or like say hello. Maybe they thought that I didn't speak French, I don't know, but that also can like really wear you down, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, it's just like not a good feeling to feel excluded. And I don't know, I just think it's so different because if someone new came to my work and they were sitting alone, like I would make it my point to be like, hi, like, oh, like, where are you from? Like, what's up? Like, what's going on? And that could also just be, I don't know, maybe it's just like my schools. I actually taught at 2 pretty big schools. There was a lot of teachers. And also, I mean, I know that it was definitely like a weird time with COVID and everything, but those were really hard times where I just felt super awkward in the teacher's lounge. I also felt like specifically at one of my schools, like I never understood the rules, like the teachers, and this could also be my fault for not like specifically asking me, but I felt like I was always just kind of like confused about where to go and what was going on. Like I wasn't sure what room to go to, and then I'd go to a room, there'd be people there, and like, yeah, so I think that that's kind of hard, is like I just never really felt like a part of the schools, if that makes sense. I just felt like it was just something like I kind of came there and then came back, and I don't know. So that could definitely be hard. But overall, like the negatives for me were weighed by the positives. Once again, in my opinion, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who have very strong opinions about doing this and they like really don't like it. People have left early, people hate it. Okay, so the positives. For me, in my opinion, this is like probably the most chill job ever. Like I said, it's 12 hours a week, so about 12 classes, and you can watch my TAPIF schedule about like what my responsibilities were, but basically like it's just like a very chill thing. Like there's really not a lot of stress. You don't grade anything. You're not really like super responsible for the kids because the main teacher is responsible for them. So any problem that you have, you can direct it back to the main teacher. I never really had behavioral problems, but if I had any problems, it like wasn't really my problem, you know? And also if I had any behavioral problems with like small groups I was taking, the main teacher would just be like, okay, well, they just won't go with you ever again. No problem. So it was super easy to find solutions. Like I said, like you have a ton of free time during the day. This obviously depends on like where you live, if you have a commute. Like for example, since I lived so close, if I had like a 2-hour break, I would just come home and like have that free time where I could like exercise or do whatever. But if you have like a long commute, you might just have to stay at the school. But even so, like you can use that time to do whatever you like. Also, you have a ton of break. Every time the kids are on break, obviously you're on break. So here in France, they have a 2-week break, like every month and a half or something. There's a 2-week break in October, December for Christmas, like a spring or like a winter break in February, a spring break in April, and then like beginning of May, and then classes out at the end of June, I think. So obviously whenever you have that time off, you can like just chill or travel or work on other projects, maybe like, I don't know, a YouTube channel. I know that there's some people that even like work on masters while they're doing the TAPIF program. I think it's all about like finessing your schedule, which you can definitely do. So definitely like ask for that, because it seems to me that the administrators, my colleagues at both schools, they didn't really know what was like going on with the TAPIF program. They didn't know the rules very well. So you can kind of like get away with anything basically. So definitely like don't be afraid to ask, like to like finesse your schedule in certain ways. Like, oh, I really can't work on Wednesdays because I want to be a nanny. Oh, I can't do this because I have class. Don't be afraid to try and like zhuzh your schedule a little bit, because I mean the worst that can happen is they say no. Also, another thing about the schedule is that anytime a teacher is sick, you are not allowed to have the entire class by yourself. I actually did a couple times because like I just said, a lot of the teachers don't really understand like my responsibilities. So I did a couple times and I was like, okay, like it's fine, even though I think that is technically a liability for the school, but whatever. So anytime a teacher is sick, you are not obliged to come to school because you can't have the class. So I'm not kidding you, maybe once a week, 2 times a week, a teacher would be out, because I think in France it's like it's like an easier process for not coming to school. Like if you're a little bit sick, especially this year, don't come to school. So a lot of the times I would get a text the night before saying, hey, I'm not gonna be there, I'm sick, I'm not feeling well. So then I just like don't have class. So once again, the easiest schedule ever, pretty much. So my next point is that it's really cool. One of the positives of the experience is that you get to experience, obviously, like French schools, a different culture, a different work environment. It was really interesting for me to see how 2 French middle schools function, you know, just like the little intricacies. And there's a lot of strange things about the French school system. If you want, maybe I'll make a video about that another day. But there's just a lot of interesting things that obviously are very different from mine. I also have, I guess, a completely different experience because I am from Oklahoma, obviously, which is I'm not from like a big city. I also went to private schools my entire life, from like kindergarten to high school, so that's also very different. Also just like what the kids were talking about, what were the kids interested in, like what were they wearing, what's the hot gossip, what's the 411. I loved getting to know them and kind of seeing like what's in the mind of a French middle schooler, even though I still to this day will say like the older kids, they're like 15 or, you know, so like there's nothing scarier than like a French teenager. So still. So my last positive, other than like kind of some of the other things that I mentioned in my video, which were some of my colleagues that I like loved so much, so nice. That was like the best part of the program, was getting to meet them. And I think that there's a couple people that I really will like stay in contact with. But one of the last parts that is so fun, I don't know, once again, I keep like a broken record here, I don't know if everyone will like agree, but it's like, it's just super cool because the kids will probably love you, you know, like especially if you're in like primaire or collège and they're younger kids, they're probably gonna love you. Like when I walked into the classroom, the kids were hyped, like they were like, Madison, Maddie, like oh my gosh, and because they just think that it's interesting, especially if you're from the States, because there's so much pop culture from the States, you know, like on TikTok, Netflix, movies and things, like they want to know about is that true? So many of them at the beginning of the year asked me if I knew Charlie D'Amelio or Addison Rae, and I was like, the United States is a big country, like I do not know them. But it was just funny to see kind of like, once again, like what they were into, and it's just super fun because to them, they view your lesson or the time you're there as like, it's not a regular class, like it's kind of a different way to, it's a mix-up of their schedule. You are put in the best position to be like the coolest teacher ever. And I was given so much agency with what I could do, so I really tried my best to actually teach them English that they would really use. And I tried to use a lot of examples of like pop culture and playing a lot of games because I wanted it to be fun. I didn't want it to be just like another class, and I really wanted them to practice speaking. So like for example, when it was Oscars, like this past Oscar season, we watched a lot of the trailers for the movies and we talked about them, like what does it mean, do you understand? And that was definitely like overall, aside from my colleagues, like I said, like one of the best part of the program for me was the kids. I know that's super cheesy, but I met so many super cool kids, really funny, smart, just like I'm really gonna miss some of them. And it sucks because basically my time with them kind of got cut short because of the 3rd lockdown, and I didn't really get to say goodbye to a lot of them, which is really sad. But maybe I'll get to pop in and say hello another time, I don't know. They made me super frustrated sometimes, you know, as one does. There was one class who I was with 2 times a week, and sometimes they really upset me, but I did love them. And I don't know, it was just super fun to, like I said, get to know them and yeah, and just like share that kind of enthusiasm, and it was super fun. And yeah, so that was definitely one of the positives, like by far. So I've been yammering on for plenty of time. If you have been accepted to the TAPIF program, if I could give you any advice, I would definitely say give it your all, be enthusiastic, be creative with your lessons, and be open-minded, and just kind of like go with the flow, you know, like whatever the teacher wants, that's cool. Just enjoy yourself and enjoy this time, because God, it goes by super fast and it's such a fun, interesting experience, so enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any other questions, if you would like to see any other content about TAPIF or any of my other experiences living in France, please comment down below and let me know. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodles!